Welcome back. In this video, we're going to set up our drawer item as we have started in the last video. So therefore, we have this scaffold that we started with, and in that we have the top bar, which then we created a top app bar of, and we have these icons, but then this scaffold here can have multiple parameters, right? So we did set up the scaffold state. So let's add that scaffold state in here as a scaffold state. And if I get the error that it doesn't accept my scaffold state, then it has to do with my scaffold not being the right scaffold. So let me make sure that I get the right scaffold here. I don't want to use the material 3 scaffold. I want to use the default material scaffold here. So now I can use my scaffold state that I created earlier, this one here. Okay. And it should be the lower S scaffold state, otherwise we're going to run into an error. So that's one thing. Then we have this thing called drawer content. So our scaffold, which takes care of the UI of the entire page, you see here, if I hover over it, it has this thing called drawer, gesture, shape, elevation, content, color, and so forth. And what we're interested in is the drawer content itself. So the drawer content we can now define with those curly brackets once again. And what I want to have as the drawer content is going to be a lazy column. So basically this item here can have as many entries as possible as required. So in our case, it's just 3, but let's say you want to have like 100 in there and people can scroll through it, then you would use a lazy column for that. So what I'm gonna say is I'm not going to define the content in here. I'm going to define the content like so. And now this lazy column will have a modifier dot padding in, well, let's say all directions 16 density pixels. We can play around with that later on if we want to. And now this will give us a list of items inside of this lazy column. And now I can say how I want these items to be. And these items are going to be screen in drawer or screens in drawer, which is a list that we need to create because we need to define which items we want to display inside of our drawer, which is what we're going to do inside of this screen class. So actually just in the file itself. So I'm going to create a variable here, val screens in drawer, which will be a list of, and then this will just use our screen dot drawer screen dot, and we have these 3 list items. So the drawer screen account, the subscription, as well as add account. All right, so let's use subscription here and add account. Okay, so now we are using the screens, drawer screens, so which are these objects that I create in the screen in or screens in drawer, and now I can use these screens in drawer by importing them. And these are going to be basically the items that I want to create draw items of. All right. So now I can take these individual items like so, and I'm going to call them item. And now I can make drawer items out of them. So I can get the item itself, which will just be the item, this one here. And I will also need to know whether it is selected or not. Where do I get this information from? Whether the drawer item is selected or not? We will know if it's selected based on its root. So is the root, for example, account, then we know account is selected. Is the root subscription, then we know the subscription is selected. So we can just say that this will be the current root. And here I'm going to compare item.d root. Now, where do I get this current root from? Well, the thing is, we need to create a new variable here, val current root, which will be taking, well, which will get that information from the backstack. So nav backstack entry destination root. Now where do I get that nav backstack entry from, which I now get from my controller. So I need to have a controller. So here val nav, let's actually use this name here, val nav backstack entry is going to get from my controller dot current backstack entry as state. So where do I get this controller from? Well, that's going to be a nav controller that we need to set up. So val controller dot is going to be of type nav controller, and it will be of type remember, or it will be initialized with remember nav controller. Okay, now we just need to import this current backstack entry as state and also get value. So it added the get value function as well as the remember entry as state. Okay, so this is a lot of setup, right? But basically this here, these three lines allow us to find out on which view we currently are, or you could say which screen or which page and so forth. And we're setting the current root to be whatever the nav backstack entry says we have as a destinations root. Now we're setting the current root and comparing. So we're saying this selected, which is a Boolean. We're setting that to either be true if the current root is the items D root, and otherwise we're setting that to false. Now for the screens in a drawer to work, we need to import lazy item scope reading. So here it says implement function lazy list scope items. This allows me then to access the items. We've seen that before, and now the errors disappear. And now we can actually go ahead and set up our drawer item. Here we are going to launch the drawer item, and we do that by using scaffold state drawer state dot close. This is, for example, to close the drawer when we click next to it or away from it or onto an item. So you see, we click on an item and it just goes away, or we click next to it, it also goes away. So this drawer state close will basically close our drawer. Now we're going to check if item deroot is going to be add account. Then we want to open dialog, and otherwise we're just going to set our controller to be, well, to navigate to item.deroot. And then the title.value will be whatever the item.d title is. So now the title is something that I want to have as basically what is displayed here. So you see here, I click on account. This title up here should be changed whenever I click on it. So you see subscription, it changes. I click on add account, this pop-up appears. So you see when the add account button is clicked, this pop-up should appear. That's what I want to do here. And in the other options, I just want to navigate to that other page and set the title. Now we don't have the title yet. So the title is basically just going to be a stakeholder for the current screen's title. So here val title will be a remember mutable state of, and here it should hold the current screen's title. Now we need to import remember for this to work. Import remember function. So I'm going to add a line here saying change that to current screen title. So we will need to set up this current screen thing. I don't want to do all at once. We will need to set up our view model before we can take the current screen title, but that's just something to keep in mind. And basically now if we run our application, we should see our drawer appear. There we are. We have our drawer with the account. Well, that still crashes the app, obviously, because we have not implemented the on-click event properly yet. But yeah, we have our drawer and we can click away from it. You can see that closes the drawer. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Now you know how to add such a drawer. We will obviously need to do a lot more to make it fully functional. So see you in the next video.